Hello, I'm Katie. The following little video is just a taster of one of the projects from my ebook, Beaded Boxes with a Flower Pot Theme. It'll just give you a sense of the teaching style you'll get, so I hope you enjoy it. So here I've got my Hyacinth beaded box, and there's a few different techniques involved in creating the flowers for that. They're all very basic, but I thought it would be nice to just show you how they work. So we've got a couple of techniques involved for the leaves. I like to create them with a combination of odd count peyote and brick stitch. Then when it comes to the flowers, there's a sort of freeform daisy chain stringing and tubular peyote combination, which sounds very complicated, but I'm about to show you is actually quite simple. So let's get on and see how that all works. Now, you've probably heard or come across odd count peyote and its strange turnaround. For the leaves and the hyacinth, I've got just a really narrow strip, so I've only picked up 3 beads to start with, and that's going to give me the opportunity to show you quite a cunning little turnaround technique. So let's start the next row. Picking up 1, we're skipping the last bead. And we pull everything up tight. This is the critical bit, to pull it up tight so you get the shaping right from the beginning. And already we're basically at the end of the row. So we've got 1 bead to add, but nowhere to stitch into. So I'm actually going to come back round and go into the bead underneath. So I'm changing direction as I do this. Again, pull everything up tight. Now, if I flip it over, I can go back. I'm adding 1 bead to give me my next row. The following row we've got our even count turnaround, so we're picking up 1 bead, we're going into the bead that's sticking up. We can see we need to add the next bead but nowhere to put it. So what I'm doing again is turning around and going in the opposite direction. Ordinarily, you'd need to work a way around to get yourself back out that direction so you can turn around and come out of the bead you've added. But that's all quite complicated, so instead I'm going to continue on through the next middle bead, continue up through the equivalent side bead, and then continue on round. So I'm sort of continuing in the same direction as the previous row. So I can add in 1, no problem, turn it over again, and once again we've got our simple add in the first bead. As we add in the second bead, you're going to double back on yourself, go down through the next bead, the central bead, up through the edge bead, and turn around where you want to be. So that also gives you a really firm base, which is really handy for such a narrow strip of odd count peyote. It's not a turnaround method that will work particularly well on wider strips, but for the purposes of this leaf it's quite a handy one to know. And if you already know odd count and you have a different favourite turnaround, then by all means use that, but hopefully this has given you something else to think about. Now the second part to the hyacinth leaf, I like to add in brick stitch, so I'm just adding an extra row on each side of my little peyote strip. Remember, brick stitch always starts by picking up 2 beads, pass under the exposed thread next to the bead you're exiting, and back up through the second of your 2 beads. Then in the next stitch along the row, you're just going to pick up 1 bead, pass under the next exposed thread, and back up through the bead you've just added. So that is basic brick stitch. Now you'll notice that your hyacinth leaves need a little bit of shaping. So let's take a look back. Where I added the 2 beads, because I was coming out of the end bead on the row, I've got an overhang, and actually I don't want that. I would rather that initial bead wasn't there. So in reality, if I just finish up this row and show you, you're going to need to actually do a little bit of a turnaround. So instead of starting a row from the end bead, you want to be starting it from this second bead in. So if we go down through that second bead, and we can come into the bead next to it to pass up, and we can pass up out through that second bead. So now this time, if I pick up 2 beads, if I pass under the next exposed thread and go back up, you can see I've managed to stagger the edge, which is what I wanted to do. Now in terms of the other end of the row, it's simply a case of finishing 1 bead early or 2 beads early, depending on how much staggering you need. So if I finish there where I've still got 1 exposed thread, I'm going to get quite a slope. If I'd filled in that last thread, I'll get a more gentle little slope there. So it's down to you to just follow the pattern and work out your brick stitch placement to create the correct shaping for the leaves. But that gives you the technique, nice and simple. Now the hyacinth flowers mix up a combination of different techniques. So we're starting out with a single daisy chain stitch. You're going to pick up 6 beads using the petal colour, and you slide them along. You want to leave a nice long tail thread because it's going to be important that you hold on to that for the next part. You're going to go through just the first bead, so you're creating a circle. Anchor that tail thread firmly. Then if you pick up your centre bead, you're going to go through the 4th bead but enter it from the opposite direction, so you're creating a sort of Z-shaped thread path. So when I pull that in tight, I've got 6 beads sitting around my centre, and that's your basic daisy chain stitch. Now from there, you want to keep a tight hold on that tail thread, and we're going to start adding the petals. So we're going to pick up 4 beads, slide them right up to the edge of the flower, miss out the final bead, go down through the first 3. Then you want to go into the bead on the flower, but enter it from the opposite side that you're exiting. Pull that up and continue on through the next bead in the flower. And you're going to do the same again. Pick up 4, slide them up to the flower. Notice I'm still holding tight to that tail thread, because if I let that go, it's going to lose the tension on the original daisy chain at the moment. Again, I've missed that end bead, going back through the first 3, going into the bead on the flower, entering from the opposite direction, so I can continue on round through and into the next bead on the flower. So just keep on doing that till you've got 6 beads added. You can already see how that's sort of pulling apart. So anytime that happens, just pull it in. Once you get past that bead that's got the tail thread coming out, everything will pull up together and things will sit a lot more neatly. Just make adjustments as you go. So I'm going to leave it there. You can see how you're adding in the other 4 petals, and I'll come back and show you the next stage in a second. Okay, so I've added the rest of the petals to the flower, and for anyone who noticed my little mistake last time, I did mean petals and not beads. So we'll move on. I'm just going to focus now on the back of the flower. Pull all your petals downwards so you've got something to hold on to, and we can focus back on those 6 original beads that we had in the daisy chain. We're going to use them to build a little tubular peyote stretch, which is a technique you're familiar with. So we're picking up 1 bead, miss out the next bead in your circle, go through the bead after that, pick up 1 bead, just move it around, miss the next bead in the circle, go through the bead after. I just change angle again. We're going to pick up 1 bead, miss the next bead in the circle, go through the bead after, so that gives you your 3 beads for the row. And you're going to step up then as you would normally in tubular peyote. So from then on, your rows are quite straightforward. You've got your beads sticking up to pass through. You're going to have 3 beads in each row, second one going in, third one going in, and then you'll step up to get you ready for the next row. So that's it, you're just working in tubular peyote to bring out the back of the flower exactly as the pattern tells you to. If you enjoyed that and would like to know more about the ebook, the details are all down below. Thanks for watching.